Hello and welcome to another edition of In the Spotlight. And this month we are honored to have Assemblymember Monica Wallace with us, who represents the 143rd District in the New York State Assembly. Monica, welcome.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Great to have you with us. And you know, it's always one of those things when people talk about different districts, whether it's the Assembly or the Senate, it goes by numbers. But what does that really mean? So the question is, tell us the areas geographically that you represent.
Sure. So I represent the 143rd Assembly District, which is comprised of the western part of the town of Lancaster, including the village of Lancaster, all of the village of Depew, and all of Cheektowaga, including the village of Sloan, as well as now a little bit of the east side of Buffalo, sort of near Broadway Fillmore, that area.
So a pretty big swath of area and certainly different demographics in each. And so how important is it for you to get out there and talk to your constituents, especially since you're in Albany half the year, essentially?
You know what? I do it all the time. I love it. I'm always at the doors. Constituents that have seen me, sometimes they'll say, oh, you've been here before, you know. I mean, I love talking to people because you get a real feel for what the concerns are of people in the community. Sometimes they're not even state issues, but you know, they're things that I would like to know about because I'll talk to other elected officials, and there are things that we can help them with.
And you've been in office since 2017,
yes.
Right? And doing a little research, Monica, I know that you're a Long Island native. You went to school in Binghamton, and then you went to UB Law School, and you also have taught at UB Law. Mm-hmm. What made you make the jump from a legal career to wanting to serve your constituents in government?
So thank you for bringing that up. I love this area. I always consider myself an adopted Buffalonian because you know, I recognize how incredibly wonderful the quality of life is here. And I was, you know, I think one of the reasons that I relate to the people in my constituents is, even though I'm a lawyer, I am the first person in my family to go to college, right? First generation. So I understand what it's like to struggle. My mom was a single mom, lived paycheck to paycheck. I was able to benefit from some of the programs that I fight for now. And I've always, even as a lawyer, been in public service. I started out my career at one of the large law firms in Buffalo, but then I quickly pivoted to working for a federal judge, where my job was to basically help him administer justice. And then from there, I was teaching at the law school. And so, you know, quite frankly, what happened was there were some scandals in this district, and I was incredibly frustrated as a mom, as a homeowner, as a resident of the community, recognizing that there's important work to be done at the state level, and we can't have people goofing around and engaging in bad behavior. We need serious people to basically restore our confidence in government and get the job done for our community.
Well, that certainly makes a lot of sense. And one of the things that you recently introduced was an inspection bill. And of course, most people who watch these videos are not just the general public, but the real estate community. And let me tell you, Assemblymember, you got everybody's attention. I remember being in state meetings and people were coming up to me asking about the inspection bill. So in a nutshell, how would you describe what the intent of the bill is? So,
and it's interesting because I think that there are people on, you know, some realtors support it and some realtors don't support it, right? But the intent of the bill is to say that, look, we have a lot of people coming in and purchasing a lot of all cash deals, waiving the right to inspection. And that's really foreclosing new first-time home buyers who absolutely need an inspection in order to participate in all the programs that we have and to get a mortgage, because there's no mortgage lender that's going to allow them to get a mortgage without an inspection on the property. So what this is basically trying to level the playing field, to give an opportunity for the homeowners to for new people, young people like my kids, like everyone else's kids that want to buy houses in a very competitive market, give them an opportunity to get that inspection done. I mean, I was thinking about it when I wrote the bill. I mean, you wouldn't buy a car without driving it first, or maybe even taking it to your mechanic to see if it's okay. But the idea of buying a house without having it inspected is really dangerous. And then what happens, people have purchased them and they don't realize what's wrong. Then they find out there are tons of structural integrity issues. So then they wind up leaving it, cutting their losses, and that leaves a vacant property that hurts everyone. So, you know, I'm open. We've had conversations about it. I know that I've had a lot of discussions with the realtors. I'm willing to try to make whatever changes are necessary to fulfill the intent of the legislation, but at the same time, address the problem that it's trying to address.
And I certainly get your point about that too, because the last thing you want is an empty property. And as you mentioned, it's a very competitive environment right now with the housing shortage that has been going on for quite some time. On the other hand, I think what I've heard from the realtor side of things who are against the bill is that there's already those measures in place. So how would you respond to that?
Well, I think that a lot of people feel pressure to waive inspection, and there is a lot, a seller making it contingent on waiving inspection. This would just say, look, at the end of the day, you don't actually have to get an inspection, but it's giving you the opportunity more so to get that inspection. And I know that over 20% of properties are being sold with the waiver of inspection. And I know that there are young people who feel, or new homeowners who feel like they are getting priced out by a new phenomenon that we're seeing not only in Western New York, but in the country, where you see big money getting involved in purchasing single-family homes, not just commercial buildings, but single-family homes, and then renting them. We don't want a country of renters. We want a country of homeowners. And so I think this is an opportunity to say, like, whoa, let's put the brakes a little bit on this issue, let people get that inspection, and go forward with the sale if there's no problems.
Where does it stand right now, the bill?
So we're working on getting support, getting information to see, what changes need to be done. So we'll talk more as the session goes on.
Good.
As you know, these bills don't always go through, and that's
Right.
good. It takes a while to build momentum for legislation and to hear from all the stakeholders.
Right.
I'm always open to hearing from the stakeholders. I don't want to do something that's going to have an adverse impact on the industry, but I think that there's a real problem that needs to be solved.
I'm glad you brought that up, because we have a lot of lobbying efforts. We talk during the year, you and I and your staff and other realtors who are in our association. And we come once a year to Albany for Lobby Day, which is generally in March or April.
Yes.
And you are always very gracious about receiving us. Believe it or not, there are some legislators who refuse to see us, which I find mind-boggling, Assembly Member. But you are not among them. You always are very gracious. We come in usually with 4 or 5 key points, and we talk, and you listen to our concerns. And you actively look up bills while we're sitting in the room even. So we know that you're listening. Tell us, if you would, a little bit about the legislative session that just ended. And if people don't understand what your term is, like generally you're in Albany from January to June?
Yes.
And then June you're in district through the end of the year?
Yes. So, and most weekends I'm in Buffalo.
Come back, yeah.
Yeah. So I'll go to, so as you know, January through June, we're in session. We go to Albany. I like to explain, I guess my job is in 3 different buckets, I guess is the best way I explain it to people. The first bucket is the legislative stuff that we do, right? Where the bills that we were talking about, talking to stakeholders about the bills, hearing from constituents about the bills, whether they support legislation, don't support legislation, talking with my other legislators about the issue. That's the first bucket. The second bucket is the budget, right? And that's a very intensive process where we have to figure out a way to balance all of the needs of everyone in the state and come up with a balanced budget every year that doesn't spend more than we're getting in revenue. And so things like making sure that there's enough funding for roads and bridges and water infrastructure, schools, hospitals, Medicaid, healthcare, things like that. And then the other bucket is constituent services, which is I have a group of people that are here in the office all year long in my district, and they will help address issues that you might call about, whether it's an issue dealing with a state agency, maybe the state agency isn't processing your license correctly enough, that's a common thing, issues with the DMV, maybe you have a small business and there's some issue with an agency in that regard, tax issues, anything on the state level that you have concerns about, feel free to reach out to my office. Unemployment, and we help out with that as well. So we kind of help out at the very, very local level, but we also do it at the more global, statewide level, making sure that there's enough funding for the things that we need in our community.
They must keep your job interesting, right? All these buckets so that you're not just doing one thing.
It's really involved. It's much more involved. Even as a lawyer, I didn't realize how involved it was until I started doing it.
It's eye-opening. Monica, we've got about a minute left. How robust is business in, say, Depew, Lancaster, other areas that you serve? The whole Cheektowaga area is a large suburb as well. Do you feel like your business community is thriving at the moment?
I believe that it is. I'm always going to it's small businesses, I think.
Small.
Always going into new openings. We were just talking, you and I, a little while ago about the Village of Lancaster and how that's really been revitalized.
Yes.
There's always a lot of small business owners that open new businesses. I just saw in the paper yesterday, in the part of the district that's in the east part of Buffalo that I represent, there's a new Bengali bubble tea restaurant that just opened. So I was like, oh, I got to get out there. So there's always new small businesses opening up, and we encourage them. We want to work with them. We also, there's a lot of homeowners, so that's obviously an issue as well. Making sure that they have whatever they need to thrive in our community. Making sure that our schools are adequately funded. Making sure that the quality of life issues are being addressed. I've gotten brought back a lot of money from the state for things like parks and I think we passed, $150 million to upgrade municipal pools so that kids have the opportunity to swim and cool off in the summer. So just all of those things. I think, a strong business community helps the area thrive, but you also need a solid residential base as well.
We certainly would agree with that.
Yes.
And how can people reach you?
So feel free to send me an email. My email address is Wallace, WALLACEM, @NY, New York, Assembly, ASSEMBLY.gov, or my office number is 716-686-0080.
Great. Assemblymember Monica Wallace, thank you for everything you do for our region, and thank you for coming in this morning.
Thank you.
Great to have you.
Great to see you.
Great to have you in the
Thank you.
spotlight. That'll put a wrap on this edition, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.